We're back to the Neil Haley Show, and I'm excited to welcome first-time author Grace Jenkins. Grace, thanks for stopping by, and I'm really excited about what's happening with you, especially now, giving your readers a taste of your writing by writing short stories. Talk about that.
Yes, thank you. It's amazing to be back. So, whenever I go through and I write any kind of story, whether a short story or a novel, it typically begins with me seeing something in my mind. I have a scene or I have a character, and I take that scene and that character and I sit down and I am essentially writing what I see. I'm going through all of the senses. I'm looking at sight, sound, smell, feel, taste. I'm getting into that character's mind and I'm saying, okay, how does this character think? What is he or she going to speak like? Are they going to talk in a more relaxed way or in a more proper way? Things like that. So I'll go in and then I'll start writing it down as I'm playing back this scene in my head. And that I think has been how I've been able to get the most emotional scenes written.
Yeah, I get it because and when you're going through that in the emotional scene. So, how long are your short stories?
This one currently is about 500 to 600 words, so it's not very long, but I have written some that have been about 15-ish pages. So you're looking at about roughly 2,000 to 2,500 words. It all depends on how long the scene takes, what I need to do to convey the emotion and to convey the image to my readers.
Right, and talk more about that process.
Okay. So, whenever I am looking at this image and writing everything down, I just start by going into the details, getting into the mindset of the character. And then as it progresses, I begin to think more actively in it, thinking about what would this character do? Why are they doing this? Eventually, what you'll find is once you get that initial scene, you can go through and you can say, okay, what led up to this moment in particular? And then you can fill in the holes from there in this short story. So, for example, in this short story that I have written, this man is turning to desperate measures to save his wife, who has an illness that cannot be cured. So you have to start with, okay, well, he's in a boat, he's in a swamp, he's about to do something nefarious. And then you maybe have this image of this woman, and she's just this sweet, innocent woman with long black hair, blue eyes, and you can see that through his head as well. So he has this memory, and then you transfer back into the present. So it's all about balancing what a character is going through in the present versus what that's reminding them of in the past. And you'll see a lot in my writing. It will go from there's a scene in the present to you're seeing something from the past inside of that character's mind, which is leading this character to this pivotal moment where they're about to do something that is either extreme or that is going to be very consequential to them or to the plot.
Right. And that it seems key. And I just a short story in so many ways still has to have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. For me, I typically look at the beginning first, and then I find out the end. And the middle is how you're going to get from point A to point B. And I think that's how a lot of authors think. Whether you're writing a short story, you're writing a poem, you're writing a novel, you have your beginning, you have your end, and then it's okay, how do I get from this particular scene in action to this particular scene in action. So you're having to storyboard it in your head as you go, like you do with movies, for example, where you have the
So
little.
you're storyboarding your head.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't storyboard in the head.
Yeah, some don't. Some people don't think as much in images. They might have a narrative thread throughout. I am one of those who tend to think more in images. So whenever I'm writing, I'll have this whole entire storyboard laid out, and I'm going beat through beat.
Okay. Beat through beat. So in your head,
Yes, in my head.
how are you remembering it then? You have to put it on paper.
It's it's like you get in a flow state whenever you do it. So whenever I sit down and I write, I'm seeing the image. I'm like, okay, I got you. And I sit down and I start just writing it out. I'm going insane at this point, writing out this beginning. And then I stop and I think about, oh, the end. And typically for me, I find that the beginning and the end are the most memorable. So I don't really have to write those down. For a short story, I don't even really have to write down an outline of the middle before I go into it. It's very much just a spurt of inspiration or a spurt of creativity, if you will. But with my longer novels, what I will do is I will sit down and have an outline to keep me straight. So I'll have, okay, this happens in this chapter, this happens in this chapter leading to this. But as far as my short story is concerned, this was very much just an I see this in the beginning, I see this in the end, and I can see this middle and how it will play out. So it really does depend on the length and the time that it takes me to sit down and write it. Like I said, I'm very much a spur of the moment author. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll sit down. It'll be normally at night where you're kind of half tired and you sit down and you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I have to write this down. I just saw this and this is amazing. So I will immediately sit down and just start typing away. I won't care as much about mistakes. And then I'll go back and I'll tweak whatever I can and read it in full. Normally, I'll also at the very end share it with my friends who write as well. So we'll sit down and we'll collaborate together and we'll go, hey, does this work? If it does, let me know, and if not, what can I do to fix it? So it's very much a spur of the moment added with your community of authors.
Okay. So how long did you again tell me how long you want your short stories to be?
My short stories typically range greatly. It all depends on the scene. So for me, the answer is however long it takes for the scene to be written. Typically, with a short story, I'm not going to go over something like 15 to 20 pages because you're trying to capture one specific scene. But I go in with the mindset of the scene is everything. What I'm seeing is everything. This is what the reader needs to see. How do I get the reader to see and feel the same way that I'm seeing and feeling in this moment through this character's eyes?
Okay.
So,
Uh, and so take me through specifically enough. You talk about putting in your brain, typing it out, an example of how you would figure out characters and get this started.
okay, so I'll actually use an example, and this is how I began my novel site. I went in and I was sitting in my bedroom one day and I just saw this image of this young man with brown curly hair and blue eyes. And he's in the middle of this snowy wilderness. And there's just this monster approaching him. And it's got the skull and the mane of a lion. And it's all scrawny and hideous. It's got this long, scaly reptilian tail. And so I'm taking that and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I need to write this down. So I immediately get on my computer and I start typing it out. Okay, I see this guy. What's his name? And then I start thinking about it. And I'm like, Noah. That's his name. Noah. It just came to me. So I start um writing about Noah and I start thinking about him. I'm like, okay, how is Noah gonna talk? What's he like? What is he like? What is he not like? What who does he um, have as his social support system? Does he have parents? Does he have siblings? So you start with the character in the center, and then you branch out from there, exploring all those avenues. It starts with that one scene, and then it goes into your more external points about this character. Starts with, okay, how do I think? How am I reacting in this scene? Which translates to how am I going to think overall? This is my speech pattern. And then it'll flow into, oh, well, I speak like this because I have parents who speak like this. Or I act like this and I like to do these things because I have a brother and we like to do things together. So you have all of these things that just ultimately end up tying together to become this realistic character, or as realistic as I can make him.
So do you build all your characters first before writing?
Yes, I do typically. I start out, I'll see a scene, and then I'll see the characters, and it goes from there. It always starts with the characters for me because that's really the heart of your book. That's really the soul of writing, I think, is looking at these characters and going through how they think, their lives, and using how these characters think and using what they do to portray truths within your writing. You always start with your characters.
It's so interesting. Always starting the characters. That's probably what every writer does. And I'm asking that question because some people start writing a story, have one character, and come up with characters that could be really just disorganized. Do you know people that are writers that are disjointed like that at first, and they just start writing and then really create the characters?
I don't think that I do in my friend group per se. I mean, we do have disjointed plots sometimes that we have to go back and fix, but most of the time, from what I've seen, characters tend to be pretty straightforward. Whenever you see an inconsistent character or something strange happening with characters that don't really make any sense, a lot of times it's because somebody thought of a plot first and didn't think about the characters that they were going to put in this plot and maybe jammed the characters into situations that these characters would never be in.
How about sub characters, like small characters? Do you add them later or you add them first?
Small characters you definitely do add later because your main characters are your biggest focus. I would say small characters are as you meet them, you kind of get a feel for
Like if you're going to a restaurant, there's a waitress or somebody else, or there's somebody else that's they meet as a friend in the story, but you add them later and then figure out and develop them in a chapter. Like this
yes.
chapter could be about a school teacher that's your worst school teacher or whatever. And then you create that character. Interesting. Because I never think about those things because, the beginning, middle, and end you think about, but you don't think about your character development. Do you know the visually what those characters look like for you?
Yes, absolutely. I do.
Really?
I always, whenever I have these scenes, I see these people, I see these
And
characters.
you could draw them too.
Yes.
Are you drawing them all? But you ever ask AI to try to create them too?
I don't really ask AI, but I do draw them from
Okay.
time to time. I love to draw my characters because I feel like AI never quite gets it right.
See,
Never quite
that's
gets
it's
it.
right because you visually see it. That's why they never quite get it right. It's the description if AI can try to put it on a canvas, but I get it completely. You create the characters, then you figure out, you add more to the character development throughout. Like, okay, this is a character that has these characteristics and these tendencies, but those tendencies can evolve, right?
Yes, absolutely, they can, depending on the character's arc per se. So whenever you're looking in terms of character development, you'll see an underlying, typically there's an underlying flaw that this character has they have to work on as you're going through. We
Okay.
have two types of characters whenever we're writing. We have our static characters that kind of remain the same, and those are usually your smaller background characters that don't really have as much emotional weight. And then you have the dynamic characters.
Got it.
Those are the ones that you really want to focus on, because they are going through these arcs, they are exploring their flaws, and they are growing and learning from them. You always want your dynamic character to change.
Okay. Soon a website will be up. We appreciate it, Grace, again. And you want to be called Links, so we'll all know this Grace Links Jenkins. And we know about links because you're interested. We'll talk more about that in the next podcast. Appreciate it, Grace.
Thank you.
You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a